Hello, everybody. Welcome to this inspiration series for the World Photographic Cup. My name is Kylie Lyons, and I'm the CEO of WPC, World Photographic Cup. And today we have a very special guest. We have Mieke Boynton. Welcome, Mieke.
Hi, Kylie. Lovely to meet you finally.
I know we've been speaking off and on and via email for a while, and we both live in the same country, but we haven't actually met face to face yet.
No, so it's
One
a
day.
pleasure to meet you.
Yay! Thank you for being part of this inspiration series. And we're lucky to see that you've got your lovely WPC 2025 image behind you. We will talk about that shortly. But firstly, Mieke, tell us who you are.
So I'm Mieke and I've always loved art. Even when I was at school, I had some fantastic art teachers who very much encouraged me to not only learn how to do art, but they also taught art history and art theory. And so from a very young age, I always loved creating things. But I think I became aware that I didn't quite have the skills necessary to be an artist. And so when I realized that, my trajectory kind of changed direction a little bit. I was quite good at writing, so I followed that path, and then I became a teacher. But then in 2008, I was teaching up in the Kimberley region of Western Australia, which is a very vast, remote region up in the top left-hand corner of Australia, if you're looking north. And I was very fortunate to go up there in the wet season. And the colors of the Kimberley are just absolutely spectacular. And I absolutely fell in love with the landscape. And I just had a little Kodak easy share point and shoot. But I ended up that year just going out and exploring pretty much every single spare minute that I had. So I pretty much fell in love with the landscape and then fell in love with photography at the same time. And
Right.
so that I just kind of bashed about with the camera for a number of years and just kind of got a little bit better. And now I'm so fortunate in that it's my full-time job. And my husband, Matt Palmer, and I have a gallery in Northeast Victoria at the foothills of the mountains in a really beautiful region of Victoria. And so, yeah, that's me.
Yeah. So really, you've not been a photographer for that long.
Well, it's over 10 years. I reckon that's a good.
And well, if you're made it your career and you're making money out of it, and look, let me just share. I'm going to share this screen. Hopefully, everyone will be able to see this. This is the gallery that you've been talking about. This is your new baby, isn't it?
Yeah, we love the fact that this we get to share our work with not just the visitors who come to Bright, but with the whole world through our website. But yeah, we certainly showcase our region, but we do a lot of travel as well. So there's a lot of photography on our website from countries like Norway and Finland and Iceland, and very soon we'll have photos from Slovenia and Italy and Croatia. So
Wow.
and New Zealand, of course, which is just a hop, step, and a jump across the ditch. One of
Yes.
our favorite places to visit. So yeah.
So we should point out, so you are now in a part of the country called Bright, which is, if we're looking at Australia, it's down south. So you're north of Melbourne.
Yeah,
How far
northeast
away?
northeast of Melbourne. It's about a 4.5 hour drive from Melbourne.
Okay, and for those who are watching us, from overseas and they don't know much about Australia, this is snow country, isn't it?
A lot of people don't realize that it does snow in Australia, and it doesn't snow in a lot of places, but where we are is the foothills of the mountains. We have 3 mountains around us that all get snow every winter. But when international visitors see our snow photos, they look at our trees and say they're not designed to be in snow, which cracks me up because we have snow gums which have evolved specifically to handle our snow conditions. So they bend and they bow under the weight of the ice and the snow, which is a completely different evolutionary tactic to the tall pine trees and things like that. So yeah, we have a very different looking snow scene to most countries.
And even just having a look at your website without going into anything, just looking at this homepage, there's some absolutely gorgeous parts of the country that you're showing off there. So yeah, there's the alpinelight.com.au, and we will put all these links into the description down below, of course, so people can scope you out, because I noticed that you do sell online as well.
We do.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Excellent. Got a nice plug. Now, the reason that I've got you on our inspiration edition today is because you are part of Team Australia for 2025, but this is not the first time you have represented Australia either, is it?
It's not. I still kind of pinch myself, but this is the third time that I've been on the Team Australia team, and it just blows my mind because, you know, I used to be an athlete, and representing your country is obviously the highest honor that you can be given. And, you know, I got to represent Australia in a crazy sport, bobsleigh.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was pretty amazing and strange and odd. But when I got the email to say that I'd been nominated for the World Photographic Cup for Australia, I was just blown away, because I didn't even know that you could represent your country in photography. And I just think that's incredible. So yeah, I feel so honored, and I love being part of a team that has not just friends, but my nearest and dearest as part of it.
Yes, we should point out that your husband Matt is also a multi-appearance member of Team Australia, and hopefully we can talk to him in the near future as well. So obviously, being an Australian and photographing the Australian landscape, that obviously influences your photography. So does your country influence what you create with your photography?
I think so, yes. I think there's probably two main ways that it influences me. I think we're so lucky in Australia. I mean, I've done a bit of travel, so I think we're very lucky in Australia that we are relatively well off individually in Australia compared to a lot of other countries, which means that we can travel, and it means that we can do photography as a full-time job. And I certainly don't take that for granted. I've definitely traveled to, I don't get me wrong, I'm not rich. I don't have a house. There's so many things I'd love to have, but I am aware that, you know, owning specialist equipment and being able to travel and doing all that kind of thing, and living in a country where travel is part of the cultural norm. You know, you can start a conversation with pretty much anyone in Australia saying, well, where have you visited? And that's not true across the board. You know, I have traveled and talked to people, and there's a lot of people who've never left their region, let alone their country. And so that is a huge influence, I think, in that right from when I was young, I always wanted to see the world, and I have that opportunity. And I guess the other real influence is because I lived up in the Kimberley, and I got the chance to meet Kimberley Aboriginal people from lots of different language groups. They taught me very much about the connection that humans have with the landscape and that care of environment. And I think the two things, the connection that you share with the landscape and the care that you show for the landscape, they're quite Australian things. I mean, there are certainly other Indigenous groups around the world who have that attitude, but I was lucky enough to experience that when I was learning photography. So that has absolutely influenced my attitude towards photographing the landscape and ensuring that I'm not in any way negatively affecting the landscape when I do my photography. So I think those two things are probably the biggest influences as an Australian.
But are there challenges that you or photographers in general face when you're out photographing the landscape in Australia?
Um, well, to be honest, it sounds trivial, but one of the biggest challenges is that the geography of where we are and our proximity to the sun means that our sunrises and sunsets are over in 15 minutes. If you travel and you spend time in Europe, they get the full golden hour. And I just thought that was a phrase. I didn't think that was a real thing until I was over there. And then if you go to the polar regions, and they've got this beautiful light all day long. You can photograph all day and sometimes all night if you're lucky enough to live in a place that has midnight sun. Well, no, we get 15 minutes in the morning and 15 minutes in the afternoon, and that's pretty much it, unless it's foggy or stormy or whatever. So I know that's a bit trivial and probably not what you were aiming for, but it is a really big factor in landscape photography for us.
Yeah, absolutely. No, this is what we want to know, and we are, I can speak, I suppose, because I'm Australian as well, and we do have a very different set of criteria to other countries. There'll be some countries which have similar situations, but I'm not a landscape photographer. I don't have the patience to sit on a rock for 6 hours waiting for the right light to come in, but I appreciate the landscape photography that you guys are actually producing. It's absolutely amazing. But sorry, go on.
Yeah, and I think another challenge for all artists in Australia is culturally art is not as highly valued as our sport, for example. And so whenever finances are a bit tricky, art is the first thing to be cut off the list. And so we're not as well respected or as valued as our sporting heroes, for example. And having been involved in sport, I find that a little bit odd, but it is very much, our country is a sporting country, and we certainly do celebrate our sporting heroes, which I certainly don't resent. But it would be really nice if art was more valued in Australia and more supported in Australia.
Yeah, no, great.
Yeah, I do think we're very lucky. Australia is a huge country, and it's, there's relatively few of us compared to somewhere like the UK that's very highly densely populated, or the US. And I think the result of that is, we get to get a lot of original compositions, and we can go places and get photos that no one's taken before, and that's a huge benefit. So yeah, we have a few challenges, but I think in general we're pretty lucky.
And we've been doing pretty well, at least in World Photographic Cup terms, let me just say. So speaking of which, I'm going to share your image from the 2025 competition, and we're happy to announce that you are a finalist, and you will find out after the 20th of March exactly which number finalist you are. So this is your entry that represents Team Australia. It doesn't really look like it is in Australia.
Funny that. No, it's not. It's not. It's certainly not. It was taken when Matt and I traveled to Iceland, and we went to a place called Kerlingafjall, which is in the Central Highlands. It's an amazing area. Yeah.
Wow. So can you just talk about this image, and did you actually plan it? Did you go to this particular spot looking to plan the image, or was it, a happy accident? There just happened to be the hiker at the time, and the clouds just magically came in?
It's a little bit of both. So we certainly planned to be there at a certain, we went in October, and we had to do a lot of planning just to get there. So we definitely did plan, but once, I guess in most of my photography, for me, like, you throw the plan out the window as soon as you get there, because you need to be able to respond to what's actually there, not what you had in your mind that might be there. And in this instance, we just got so lucky. Middle of the day photography is generally pretty tricky, and there wasn't a lot of cloud in the sky, but the geysers and fumaroles were just billowing this sulfuric smoke, and the backlight from the sun was just amazing. And so we just explored all these hiking tracks there, and the contrast was just amazing between the smoke and the rhyolite hills. And so it was the kind of place where there's quite a few hikers, and often like 1, 2, or 3 people in a group. And literally it was a photographer's playground, because you could just go on any of the hills and someone would be walking in a photogenic spot. So I didn't really have to wait for anything. I just had to look to see what was happening. And I did see this person. You can see there's a little bridge at the bottom. And I saw this person come across the bridge. So I knew they were going to come up the ridge. But what I didn't realize until afterwards, I didn't see the little figure up at the top right. And for me, that makes the shot, because it's almost like it creates a story. It's this apocalyptic scene where someone's crossed the bridge, never to go back. They're going up this hill dejectedly, and then off in the distance, there's someone who's kind of like escaped it all. Like they're in a better place. That's how I read into it. Obviously there's probably no relationship whatsoever between those two hikers, but I took a number of photos, but I just loved the dynamic that little tiny figure created with the silhouette of the hiker who was closer.
That's right. And I guess that's what results in an award-winning image is that storyline, whether it's the right storyline or not, but whoever is judging the image can put a story to it. And whether it's what you've just described or their own, not only are you technically excellent with, the way things are placed and where your hikers just happen to be and the contrast and everything, but you've got that added emotional connection there as well, which is fantastic. Now, I don't want to go too much into, your gear and how you create the images, but what did you do? You've obviously got a set of equipment that you travel with. How did you actually edit and create this final image?
Well, in terms of the creation, I really just kind of I took a lot of photos while I was there, and both photos of the landscape without people, and it was irresistible when the people were in the right places. Took photos with the people. I don't normally take photos with people, by the way. It's not something I usually do, but you couldn't really get a sense of the scale here without the people in it. But what really stood out for me was the amazing contrast and the textural differences. And so when I came to process the photo, I wanted to emphasize that. But I'm in the nature landscape category. And so you really can't do any editing. It's very, very minor. But the one decision that I did make was to change this into black and white, because I felt that really emphasized the things that I liked the most. It emphasized the drama, it emphasized the contrast, the silhouettes really stood out. And so it kind of simplified the image in a way. And this, it is so dramatic already, so that the color was actually almost detracting from the photograph. And there was very little color in it anyway, just because of the strength of the light. There was such strong highlights and shadows. So yeah, I didn't have to do a lot to this photograph. It was pretty much ready to go.
So, well, you make a good point, because this is a competition. World Photographic Cup has sets of rules. And, as you said, in the nature landscape category, you cannot make changes. You cannot clone a person into the shot. You cannot remove a person from the shot. But in your normal creative process, would you go into maybe one of the images that you're selling in the gallery? Would you go in and clone areas if you have to? What do you normally do? What's your creative process normally?
So for me, landscape photography is about the experience. It's about what I felt when I was there. It's almost like I try really hard to open my mind to what the landscape is saying. And I know that sounds really airy fairy, but I've spoken to enough others who feel the same way that I know I'm not alone. When you go into the landscape and you're open to the sounds and the smells and the personality of the environment that you're in, that becomes part of why you enjoyed that moment and why you took the photograph. And so that's a huge part of it for me. Like the taking of the photograph, the experience of being there is more important than the end result. But when I get to the point where it's time to process, I try to honor that experience that I had. And so I of course, if there's a pole sticking out somewhere that looks no good, or if I can, darken an area at the edge so that it's not distracting, and I'm very happy to do things like that. There's no issue. Like, it just makes it a better photograph, and as long as I'm honoring what that experience was, then I can do creative edits. But as soon as it crosses the line into something that wasn't what it was when I experienced it, then it's no, thank you. that's not to me, that's not honoring nature, and it's not honoring what I was offered in that moment. So that's what kind of limits me with processing. Having said that, some of my best friends and most admired photographers use all the tools available to them. And I hope that one day down the track, when I can no longer, go to the places that I want to take photographs, if I'm stuck at home, I will probably become a creative illustrative photographer, because I just feel like there's so much to learn in that space. And I wanted to be a painter when I was younger. I wanted to create things. So I can see myself doing that, when I can no longer do what I'm doing now.
Well, I'm sure that's a long, long time away. But what's your inspiration? What gets you out of bed in the morning?
Well, what gets me out of bed in the morning? They're two different questions.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yes, you're probably right.
Yeah. So what gets me out of the bed in the morning? I actually really love coming to work. It's really special to own a gallery and to have people come in and ask the stories about your photographs. And it is the stories, like, genuinely, it's the experiences. If I didn't have those experiences taking the photographs, then I don't think I'd enjoy being at work. But in terms of what I'm inspired by, it's nature always. I am a bit of an introvert, believe it or not, and when I'm around people, I feel like my energy goes out a lot. And so when I'm in nature, it's like it all comes in, it fills me up, and I get energy. And when I have those special moments where you just feel at one with nature, or nature's putting on an incredible sunrise or sunset or something like that, the joy that I feel is, I don't have anything else to compare it to. So like, when I discovered that, it was like, oh my gosh, yes, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. And whether it's in the landscape, or whether it's in a helicopter or a light plane flying over incredible places that look so amazing from the air, because I really love aerial photography as well. Either way, it's the joy and the experience and the admiration that I have for our incredible planet.
Wow, that's absolutely fantastic. Now, I want to wrap this little interview up with, can you share with us one little tip, a trick, a piece of advice, or an idea, or something that is going to inspire those who have been looking at your beautiful work and hearing your passion that you have for your work, and your passion for the planet and landscape photography? What can you give as a little piece of takeaway?
I would probably say, if you're interested in landscape photography, or even if you've been doing landscape photography for a while and you don't do this, maybe just give it a shot one day when you go out. Close your eyes and smell and listen and feel the wind and see if there's anything you get from the environment around you that will connect you more to the landscape. Because I do think that when you're fully in the moment, when you're living in the now, you're much more attuned to what's going on, and I think you can probably take better photographs. So I think, you know, for people who don't normally take landscape photographs, it can be really hard to understand what you're photographing. But if you think of the landscape as a person that has a personality, and, you know, like the trees, they're all personalities, and you know, a certain rocks, imagine them as trolls or people, or do you know what I mean? Like, if you see the landscape as having personality, it's like taking a portrait of the landscape. That's, yeah, that, and I do think when you're letting all the stuff that's always in your head go and opening up your mind to what's happening now, I think even if you don't get great photographs, that's still a wonderful experience.
Wow. Well, I have to say, you've inspired me. And like I said, I'm not a landscape photographer, but I think you've just given me an idea to go out into nature and close your eyes, and that smelling and that being is a good starting point. That's really great food for thought. Thank you so much. Now, Mieke, we want to thank you for being part of this World Photographic Cup WPC Inspiration Series. I really hope that everybody has got to the end of our video and have really been inspired by your wonderful work and your passion that you have. We will put Mieke's socials and her website in the description underneath this video, but be sure to like and subscribe. And as we do more of these inspiration series, you'll get notification that they are there. Congratulations again, Mieke. You are a finalist in the 2025 World Photographic Cup. But we should point out, you were a finalist last year too.
2 years ago.
Oh, so she's obviously doing something right. So thank you so much again, Mieke. I really appreciate your time. Like and subscribe, and we look forward to our next inspiration series. Thanks, Mieke.